Can you, with 100% certainty, tell me which cars all of these headlights belong to? What about this one and this one? Yeah, if you're a nerd, like me, you probably can pat yourself on the back for being able to identify all of these. But this game of naming cars isn't the point here. You will probably have a hard time denying that all of these lights aren't similar to each other in terms of their basic design, and that is despite all of them coming from completely different car manufacturers from all around the world. Here's the shape that I'm actually talking about. The main feature is this, a smooth line with a rounded curve to make it run from the left to the right without any hard corners. This design is topped off with a flat bottom, no crazy shapes there. Now this main line could be more convex, or there could be a trail off on the upper right corner, but the basic shape remains the same. A rounded leading line meets sharp corners. This basic shape was almost ubiquitous during the early to mid 2000s, utilized by many designers from many brands, which at a glance really does seem odd. We're not talking about, for example, door handles here. The front lights of a car are an incredibly important bit of design for every single car, as along with the grille, they make up what is easily called the face of a car. And this face is a big factor of what differentiates one car from all of its competitors. The shape, size, and even the technology inside of a light unit is one of the main determiners which give a car a sense of personality, a key element of a car's visual identity. So why does an Opel Vectra look so similar to a Ford Fusion? Alternatively, why does an Opel Vectra look so similar to a Ford Fusion? Well, there are a few Fords that we have to look at in order to answer this question, actually. Starting off in 1984 with, well, not actually a Ford, but a Lincoln. The 1984 Lincoln Mark 7 was the very first modern car sold in the United States with flush composite headlights, thanks to some strong lobbying on Ford's part, which meant that starting from 84, cars sold in the US no longer needed to be designed with sealed beams in mind. Finally, this ushered in an era where designers had way more freedom than ever before. And to illustrate this, let's compare Ford's compact offerings in the US of A. In the 70s, you had the Pinto, a car which had quite a big and famous flaw attached to its legacy, as you probably know. Yeah, exactly, it looked identical to its closest competitor, the Chevrolet Monza, no doubt partially because of the regulation-required headlights that the two were forced to share. Now, let's look at Ford's compact offering during the late 90s, the Focus. Familiar headlights, aren't they? Yeah, nothing else looked like this when it came out in 1998, as the Focus was the recipient of Ford's New Edge styling language, and really taking it to the extreme. It may look a bit antiquated or normal today, but when this thing was launched, either you loved it or you hated it. Ford was taking a big risk replacing the perennial and, well, boring Escort with something that looked interesting. But as any person who's ever been to a casino can tell you, the risk paid off and the Focus became a massive seller. So it would be obvious that Ford would continue their New Edge styling into the future, right? No. Claude Lobo, the Focus's designer, retired and was replaced by Chris Bird as the design director at Ford of Europe. By the time Chris Bird arrived at Ford, the management over there had already decided that Ford would be moving away from the successful but controversial New Edge styling. The reason behind this, at least partially, must have been the 1997 Volkswagen Passat. While we may not realize this today, the B5 Passat was quietly a revolutionary piece of design, being the first model to feature Volkswagen's new Bauhaus-inspired design language. The car looks like it's been carved from a single block essentially, and is clean, sleek, and functional. With a particular highlight being the pronounced wheel arches, the entire design is characterized by smooth, straight lines, including the shut lines, and Volkswagen really focused on making the panel caps as thin and as uniform as possible.
Perfect, thin, narrow, millimetrically precise.
Alongside the interior quality, which was verging on competing with Mercedes' sedans. This philosophy of quality on Volkswagen's part really pushed other car makers to rethink their strategies to compete with Volkswagen's higher-end appeal, including, obviously, Ford. And the hiring of Chris Bird could be seen as a direct answer to that. Before his time at Ford, he had been a designer at Audi, which was also a part of Volkswagen's Bauhaus design motif. So Ford took notice of the Passat and launched the second-generation Mondeo in 2000. Pronounced wheel arches, smooth straight lines, a bubble-shaped roof, and a more refined and even civilized version of the headlights seen on the Focus. So sure, Ford was moving towards a more high-end design language, just like everyone else was now planning on doing. But this shape wasn't going away from their designers' minds. After all, it worked quite well with the kind of sharp detailing combined with straight lines that car design was now moving towards. And this was also realized by Ford's arch-rival, Opel. The 1995 Vectra had been crucified for how sleep-inducing it was. I will now play the Clarkson clip.
But small boys are not going to grow up yearning for the day when they can have one. Honestly, trying to road test it is like trying to road test a microwave oven.
That was the Clarkson clip. So seeing the success of the Passat and wanting to change its fortunes with the next Vectra, Opel also went for a very straight Volkswagen-inspired design with crisp surfacing and sharp details. Once again, look at the bubble-shaped roof, very much inspired by the Passat. So in 2002, in came the Vectra C with those headlights. This new design of austerity started landing on other Opels as well, like the Meriva or Signum or Speedster, which actually came out before the Vectra, but I'm not going to mention that. But really, it was still Ford once again who doubled down on what they had started essentially. From the Focus to the C-Max to the Transit Connect to the Fusion to the EcoSport and even their other brands like the Mercury Milan. The other American manufacturers didn't quite lean into this look though. Chrysler had the Pacifica and GM had the Saturn Outlook. Two cars that are so interesting they make a beige wall look daring. On that very same note, you've got Mitsubishi's Lancer and the Australian 380. I've got literally nothing to say about these. Perhaps a bit more interestingly, Rover's RDX 60 prototype never reached production and neither did the Lada 2151, but both had hour headlights, more akin to what Ford was doing instead of the swept back look that Mercedes adopted later. Yeah, okay, let's just get through these. Am I saying that all of these were inspired by Ford's European division and their lineage can be traced back straight to the Focus? No, actually, I'm not saying that at all. Really, you could come up with plenty of backstories for this trend if you want to. Honda's Prelude from 1996 matches our description. Was Ford getting inspiration from there? No. Car design follows trends and every single car is a product of its time. And all of these cars were products of their time. So by the late 2000s, designers were moving away from rationalism and austerity in their works. Instead, we started getting more pronounced creases in the bodywork and more expressive faces. Ford's very own kinetic design is an excellent example of this shift. From understated to expressive to understated to expressive once again. Now, all of these are simply a time capsule.
Join the Corsicar membership program on YouTube today and receive exclusive content and the right to brag for decades to come. Tell your family, tell your friends, and join the Corsicar membership program on YouTube together to support your 57th favorite content creator. Just keep in mind, these cheap prices will last forever.